The best wide receiver in the NFL has a direct connection to Klint Kubiak, going back to Minnesota. And CBS Sports just named the Raiders the most likely landing spot if that situation unravels. And the case being made is genuinely hard to dismiss. Max Crosby posted something on social media that nobody knows how to interpret, and the trade speculation just got loud again, with 5 specific teams now being ranked as suitors. Nakobe Dean went on NFL Network and said something about Crosby that tells you everything about the culture being built in that locker room. And the reporter closest to this organization just said 7 wins with Fernando Mendoza on the field matters more than 9 wins with Kirk Cousins. Stay here with me, Raider Nation. Let's get into the news. 2 lines on social media, and the Max Crosby trade conversation just came back to life. Crosby posted on X this week and wrote, "Stop people-pleasing and handle business accordingly." And nobody knows for certain what that means. It could be a motivational saying he lives by. It could be something completely unrelated to football. But in the context of everything that has happened with his trade situation this offseason, nobody is going to read that post and not wonder if there is something more behind it. Especially because his post included an eagle emoji, which is the symbol of the Philadelphia Eagles, one of the teams that has been connected to him all offseason. Now 5 teams are being ranked as potential trade suitors in order of likelihood, and the picture that emerges is worth breaking down directly. The New York Giants are at the bottom of the list, 5th, with the reasoning being that a straight swap of pass rushers does not work, and New York would need to add 2027 draft capital to make it happen. The Washington Commanders are 4th, with over $43 million in cap space, but without a realistic current asset to offset the draft capital cost beyond just picks. The Philadelphia Eagles are 3rd, and this is where it gets interesting. Carter remains unsigned on his extension, and if those negotiations sour, he becomes the primary asset going the other way in a Crosby deal. The eagle emoji on Crosby's post is not being ignored by anyone paying attention. The Chicago Bears are 2nd, with Montez Sweat already on the roster, and a front office that is all in on Caleb Williams' window right now. A first-round pick for Crosby makes sense for a team that managed just 35 sacks last season. And at number 1, the San Francisco 49ers, who have a troublesome asset in Brandon Ayuk that they have been trying to extract value from, and who could potentially structure a deal where Ayuk goes to Las Vegas as part of the package, alongside a first-round pick or conditional second-rounders tied to playoff performance. Now let me be direct about where I stand on all of this. Crosby has said publicly he wants to be here. He has been leading pre-practice routines, getting the energy going, acting as the heartbeat of this defense even while rehabbing. A cryptic post on social media should not override everything he has shown inside that building. But the post exists. The eagle emoji exists. And until Crosby is on that field healthy, and this team shows it can win games, the conversation is not going away, no matter how much Raider Nation wants it to. And while the outside noise around Max Crosby keeps getting louder, what is happening inside that locker room tells a completely different story, and Nakobe Dean just gave the clearest window into it yet. Dean appeared on NFL Network on June 26th and talked about what he has seen from Crosby since arriving in Las Vegas, and his words hit harder than anything any analyst or insider has said about this team all offseason. He said Crosby has not been out there on the field with them, but he is out there working every single day. He said his positive attitude is infectious. He said Crosby says what's up to everybody, that you can see how he knows everybody, and that his positive energy changes the temperature of that building even without taking a single snap. And then Dean said something personal that I think captures exactly what this means. He said that as a new player coming in and not knowing anybody, he is trying to learn everybody's name and figure out how to connect with people the way Crosby does naturally. That is a veteran linebacker who just signed a $36 million deal, choosing a player who is not even on the practice field as the example he is trying to follow when it comes to how to show up for his teammates. That is leadership. Not the kind you manufacture for a press conference, the kind that exists whether the cameras are on or not. Dean also addressed the broader culture shift happening in this building, and what he said goes directly to the heart of what John Spytek and Klint Kubiak have been trying to build all offseason. He said they know what it takes. He said you bring guys and coaches from teams that have won and know how to win, you build a culture, and at the end of the day, the only thing that matters in the NFL is winning games. Dean came from the Eagles. Tyler Linderbaum came from the Ravens. Quay Walker came from the Packers. These are players who have been in winning environments, who know what a championship locker room feels like, and who are now bringing that standard to Las Vegas. The Raiders have not had that kind of collective winning experience in their building in a very long time. And now they have a player describing Crosby as the magnetic center of all of it, even before he sets foot on a practice field. When Crosby finally gets healthy and steps back onto that field in training camp, the energy in that building is going to shift in a way this fan base has not felt in years. And Dean just told you why. And while this culture is being built around players who know how to win, the long-term vision for what this offense can become just got a very specific name attached to it. And CBS Sports' Garrett Podell named the Raiders the most likely landing spot for Justin Jefferson if the situation in Minnesota unravels. Let me be clear up front about what this is and what it is not. Jefferson has not requested a trade. He has not indicated he wants out of Minnesota. This is a projection based on a quarterback situation that has not yet failed. But the football argument for why Las Vegas becomes the obvious destination if that situation does fail is genuinely compelling and worth taking seriously. The connection between Jefferson and Klint Kubiak is not vague or distant. Kubiak was the Vikings quarterbacks coach when Jefferson was drafted in 2020 and was promoted to offensive coordinator the following season. In 2021, with Kubiak calling the plays, Jefferson caught 108 passes for 1,616 yards and 10 touchdowns. That is one of the most dominant receiving seasons any player has had in the modern NFL. Jefferson knows how Kubiak thinks. He knows the spacing, the timing, the concepts that make this offense function at its ceiling. He is not a player who would need 6 months to build chemistry with a new system. He would arrive already calibrated. The projected trade cost is a first-round pick and a third-round pick, which is similar to what the Eagles received from New England for A.J. Brown earlier this offseason. And the Raiders have already proven they are willing to pay that kind of price for an elite receiver. They sent a first and a second to Green Bay for Davante Adams in 2022. The precedent is real, and the willingness is documented. Now think about what this offense looks like with that piece in place. Fernando Mendoza at quarterback, Brock Bowers as the best tight end in football, Ashton Jeanty as one of the most electric running backs in the league, and Justin Jefferson as the #1 receiver. That is not a good offense. That is a historically dangerous offense that no defensive coordinator in the AFC West is equipped to handle. The only scenario that makes this happen is Minnesota's quarterback situation failing badly enough that Jefferson decides his window to compete is more important than his loyalty to the organization that drafted him. If that moment comes, and Podell believes it could by 2028, Las Vegas needs to be the first call he gets. And the connection to Kubiak means this franchise already has an advantage no other team can replicate. And while that long-term vision is being built, the most important decision this coaching staff has to make in 2026 just got the clearest framework yet, and it came from the reporter who is closer to this organization than anyone else covering it. Vincent Bonsignore of the California Post appeared on Raider Nation Radio's Morning Tailgate and said directly that he would rather have 7 wins with Fernando Mendoza playing than 9 wins with Kirk Cousins. That is not a casual opinion. That is the most informed voice in the local Raiders media ecosystem telling you that the #1 priority for this franchise in 2026 is not the win total. It is getting Mendoza on the field, getting him real experience, and building the foundation that makes everything coming after 2026 possible. And the reasoning Bonsignore laid out is exactly right. 7 wins with Mendoza playing a full season means this organization comes out of 2026 knowing precisely what they have at quarterback, knowing what worked and what did not in real game situations, and knowing exactly what pieces they need to add around him heading into 2027. That is information you cannot get any other way. You cannot simulate it in training camp. You cannot replicate it in the preseason. You need regular season snaps against real defenses with real stakes to understand what a franchise quarterback actually is at this level. 9 wins with Cousins playing the whole season means this team finishes with a better record, but arrives at 2027 with the same fundamental uncertainty about Mendoza that existed going into 2026. That is not progress. That is postponement. Now here's the part of this conversation that creates real suspense. The decision about when to make the switch is not simple. If Cousins is playing well and this team is winning games, pulling him creates real friction. Players buy into a winning quarterback. Kubiak's job security is also tied to results in year 1. And there is a version of this where a good start from Cousins makes the transition politically harder than it needs to be. But Bonsignor's point holds regardless of those complications. The difference between 7 and 9 wins is not the difference between making the playoffs and missing them in a deep AFC. What the difference between 7 and 9 wins can be is the difference between a Mendoza who enters 2027 with a full season of real NFL experience and a Mendoza who enters 2027 still waiting for his moment. This franchise has been waiting for a franchise quarterback for years. The moment is here, and the only thing left to decide is when Kubiak pulls the trigger and lets him go. Well, Raider Nation, here is what today actually told us about where this franchise is heading. The Crosby situation is not resolved, and a cryptic post with an eagle emoji is not something you dismiss when 5 specific teams are already being ranked as suitors. But what Nakobe Dean described inside that locker room tells you that whatever noise exists on the outside, the culture being built on the inside is real, and Crosby is at the center of it, even without stepping on the field. Justin Jefferson and Klint Kubiak have a connection that no other franchise in this league can replicate. And if Minnesota unravels, the Raiders need to be the first call he gets. And the most important declaration of the day came from the reporter closest to this organization, who said plainly that 7 wins with Fernando Mendoza on the field matters more than 9 wins with Kirk Cousins. That is the priority. That is the plan. Everything else, the receiver room, the trade rumors, the contract situations, all of it exists in service of one goal: building the foundation that makes Fernando Mendoza great. Training camp opens in late July. The answers start arriving the moment those pads go on. Drop your take in the comments. This space belongs to everyone who lives by just win, baby, and never walked away from the silver and black.